What's up, YouTube? This is Jay the Wanderer with Oakland Latinos Unidos, aka Oakland Latinos United, the voice of the Latino community in the Bay Area, California, YouTube, Oakland, and beyond. Well, I'm on here with a new video for you to enjoy, and today the video I'm about to make is going to be a little something different than I usually make. It's going to be basically an oral history lesson, or a classroom, and I'm going to be your teacher. And what's the lesson going to be about? It's going to be about the history of the Mexican, Latino, Chicano community of my hometown of Oakland, California. The reason I'm going to do a history lesson about Latinos or Mexicans in general in Oakland, California is because it really hasn't been done. And I've been working on this project, on this study, for about, I would say like 7 or 8 years. I've been doing it since about 2002 or 2001. And the reason I started doing this is because people never really associate Oakland as having a Latino community. People always generally believe that Oakland is like an all-black ghetto, basically. But Oakland is much more beyond that. Oakland is a very diverse town. And yes, African Americans have contributed a lot to the history and to the city of Oakland, but they're not the only ones. There's a large Asian community in Oakland and a large Latino, Chicano, Mexicano community in Oakland also. And it's a very diverse town, like I said. But it's usually associated as this messed up black ghetto, and that's far from true. I find that offensive because all the blacks in Oakland aren't ghetto thieves or ghetto robbers. That's just a bunch of racist bullshit that people put upon my hometown. But as far as the Latino community of Oakland, I believe that the Latino community in Oakland has been ignored, and its history has been ignored. Nothing's really been written about it. I have about maybe 4 or 5 history books about Oakland history, and only one contains a chapter on Mexican history in Oakland, and that one is called Oakland, the Spirit of a City. No, Spirit of Oakland, that's the name of it. Sorry about that. Spirit of Oakland. And it has a chapter about the Mexican history of Oakland. But as far as that goes, every other book I have about Oakland either has a little bit or almost nothing about it. And like I said before, the African American community has been traditionally one of the bigger communities in Oakland, probably within the last 30, 40 years. And it's contributed a lot to the local culture of Oakland. But unfortunately, a lot of idiots out there think that blacks only ruined Oakland, and that's not true either. You know, what really ruined Oakland were greedy capitalists and other problems like that. No jobs and stuff like that. But anyway, that's another story for another time. So I've been working on this history project for people to know about the history of the Mexican community of Oakland. Because me being part of the Mexican, Chicano, Latino community of Oakland, I've always felt that people should know the history of it. So let's start off with the history lesson, with the first part. And we're going to start off in the 1920s. Oakland in the 1920s, because in the 1920s is when the largest population, basically the first big migration of Mexican immigrants came to Oakland. Even though it wasn't big compared to today, it was sizable. And it started out in West Oakland, not in the Fruitvale district. Many of you that are familiar with Mexicans in Oakland today might think of the Fruitvale district. But at this time, the Fruitvale district was predominantly a Portuguese, German, and white neighborhood. And there were probably a few Mexicans, but not very many. At this time, most of the Mexicans that came to Oakland came to West Oakland, particularly around Market and 7th Street and 7th and Broadway, 7th and Jefferson, 7th and Clay. All those areas is where most of the original Mexican families that came to Oakland came. Why did they start coming in the 20s, and why do I start my lesson off in the 20s? Was because the 20s was the end of the Mexican Revolution. And basically from 1910 to 1920, the Mexican Revolution hit Mexico hard. And it was a time when Pancho Villa, Emiliano Zapata, Francisco Madero, Victoriano Huerta, Álvaro Obregón, Venustiano Carranza, and all those guys were fighting for power over Mexico, and it created this big war that killed millions. But 10% of Mexico's population left Mexico and immigrated to the U.S. Most of them immigrated naturally around the border, like El Paso, Los Angeles, San Diego, Arizona, New Mexico. But some went further. Some went to Detroit, Chicago, Kansas City, Missouri, Denver, Colorado. And some headed up towards Northern California, particularly Oakland, Richmond, San Jose, Sacramento, Stockton, San Francisco, and whatever. And the Mexican community that came to Oakland originally mostly came around West Oakland. Like I said, particularly around 7th and Market and 7th and Broadway, 7th and Washington, which is kind of like West Oakland border with downtown Oakland. And the reason they came here was because many of the people that came were railroad workers. Many of the Mexicans that came were hired as the railroad workers, and the railroad yards were located in West Oakland. Also, there was a lot of factories, canneries, and other industrial jobs that many Mexicans took up as work. So it was natural that that was the area where most of them came. And also, you got to remember, at this time, East Oakland was predominantly white. Oakland itself was a predominantly white Anglo-Saxon town and European town. You know, blacks, Mexicans, Asians were the smallest minority in Oakland. And most of them were segregated in West Oakland. You know, very few of them, or if any at all, lived in East Oakland. But let's start off with some of the pioneers who brought some of the first Mexican, basically Mexican entrepreneurs, some of the ones that brought some of the first music, the first, entertainment to Oakland, for you could know who they are. Let's start off with this man right here. This man right here was named Ramon Martinez, and Ramon Martinez came to Oakland in the 1920s. He wasn't from Mexico, actually. He was from Arizona, and he was, I believe he was half Native American, half Navajo, and half Mexican. Ramon Martinez came to Oakland in the 20s, to West Oakland, and when he came here, he seen that there was a pretty good-sized Mexican community, but it lacked basically a Mexican entertainment scene. He was one of the founders of one of the first music groups in Oakland, and that music group was called Los Caballeros. And like I said, his name was Don Ramon Martinez. This is a picture I found in the Oakland Tribune archives. And there he is right there, Don Ramon Martinez. And this is actually his band, Los Caballeros, which is one of the first Mexican bands in Oakland. And this picture was taken somewhere in the early 1930s. Don Ramon Martinez, besides starting one of the first Mexican bands in Oakland, he hosted one of the first radio shows in Spanish in Oakland with a radio station called KLX, I believe. And it was broadcast from the Oakland Tribune Tower in downtown Oakland. It was called The South American Way, was the name of the show, and it aired like in the afternoon. And it was one of the first Spanish radio shows ever in Oakland or the Bay Area, or in Northern California at that. Don Ramon Martinez was also the father of a famous Chicano singer. His name was Don Tosti. I don't know if any of you guys know about him, but Don Tosti was a Chicano musician who started some of the first Chicano music in the United States. His famous song Pachuco Boogie and Chicano Boogie and many other songs. This was around the time of Lalo Guerrero in the late 40s. Basically, he started the whole Pachuco music of the 40s. And it was basically the first time a Chicano who mixed Chicano sounds with African American R&B and swing and jazz of the time. Well, Don Tosti was the son of this man, Don Ramon Martinez. Don Tosti was actually from El Paso, Texas, but Don Ramon Martinez was his father. He had him, I guess, through another marriage before he came to Oakland. And Don Ramon Martinez also started some of the first Mexican festivals in Oakland, which were like in the Mexican Independence Day, Cinco de Mayo. And I believe he was the one who created the first city-sponsored, government-sponsored Cinco de Mayo festival in Oakland in 1946. But before that, he started some of the early small festivals for the community. And you could see he was a true Mexican pioneer in Oakland. Another Mexican pioneer of entertainment was this man right here. Let me make this picture a little bigger. This man right here, his name was Guadalupe Carlos, and this picture was taken in the 1940s at Sweet's Ballroom in downtown Oakland. You can see this is the Mexican crowd at one of the Mexican dances. He started Mexican dances called tardeadas, which were Sunday afternoon dances. And as you could see, in those days, most clubs, restaurants, and bars, most entertainment places had certain nights for certain races. One night might be African American, one night might be Mexican, one night might be for white people. And that's how most of the United States was at that time. But Guadalupe Carlos came from, I believe, Guanajuato, Mexico, and he came to Oakland in the 1920s also. And Also, like Don Ramon Martinez, he seen the lack of Mexican entertainment in Oakland, and he became one of the first promoters at Sweet's Ballroom, which was a famous place in downtown Oakland. He brought many acts like Cantinflas, Tintan, Pedro Infante, Jorge Negrete, Javier Cugat, Pérez Prado, and many other big names of that time to Oakland. The tardeadas in Oakland lasted from the 1930s all the way to the 1950s. Here's another picture with Guadalupe Carlos at Sweet's Ballroom. Guadalupe Carlos was basically one of the founders of the Mexican entertainment scene in Oakland. Here's a picture with him and Javier Cugat. And Guadalupe Carlos was, like I said, one of the founders of the Mexican entertainment and Latino, Chicano entertainment industry in Oakland at Sweet's Ballroom on Sundays in the afternoon. So he was another pioneer of Oakland's, festivals. But I'm out of time, and I'll be back with part 2 of the lesson, and we will learn more about the old community.